I mean, Pat Carney did say publicly that she put on her Facebook her criticisms of Pamela Wallen, claiming the forms were confusing. And Pat did put on Facebook, if those forms are confusing, you shouldn't be in the Senate. Those aren't confusing forms. So she's been pretty outspoken about it. But when you go back to there were, I'm trying to remember the exact number. I think it was 28 senators appointed on one day. And in that slew of senators were Mike Duffy, Pamela Wallen, and Patrick Brazeau, among others, Linda Fromm, a whole group of senators. And Stephen Harper claimed that he had to appoint 28 senators in one day. This was during the fall 2008 development where we might have had a coalition. He said, I have to put these conservative senators in place because there may be this illegitimate coalition taking over Canada, so I have to put in 28 conservatives. And Pamela Wallen representing Saskatchewan is just as fanciful as Mike Duffy representing PEI.
That's right.
And they had to have talked them into this, right? They had to have talked them into this. I mean, Pamela Wallen, look at the expenses it means for someone, the way she was living, which is on a larger income than she makes as a senator, with a condo in New York and a condo in Toronto. No house in Ottawa, no house in Saskatchewan. The gig as senator is going to require that you have a place in Saskatchewan and a place in Ottawa. And so, I'm sure they said to her, oh, don't worry. You'll get money for a secondary residence. So just say your Ottawa place is your secondary residence. Can you stay with your parents in Saskatchewan? You have someone in Saskatchewan you can use as an address? That's how everybody does it. And I'm sure they said this. Now, Mike Duffy's situation, all he had to do was pretend his house in PEI was his main residence. Because at least he already had a house in Ottawa. Pamela Wallen had a lot more expenses because she didn't want to lose her residence in Manhattan and her residence in Toronto. Not that I'm, trying to organize the Pamela Wallen Defense Fund here and pass the hat, but she was obviously talked into it. They had to have been. And the reason that Stephen Harper wanted Pamela Wallen and Mike Duffy as senators is that they're household names and public speakers.
They're fundraisers.
They're fundraisers for the Conservative Party. And so the whole thing was, you're right, it was like a ticking time bomb, but they pulled the pin, they set the
so
trap.
what's been the outcome of this whole pogrom in the Senate? Thomas Mulcair hacks away at the Conservatives, they self-destruct, Justin Trudeau becomes popular by not saying anything.
Yeah.
So isn't this Bay Street handing power over to the Liberals?
Well, yes.
Yeah, and this has been the plan for 10 years probably.
Well, yeah.
Look at Rob Ford.
Yeah, I'd rather not. I've seen enough of Rob Ford for a lifetime.
Well, it's bizarre.
It is bizarre, but there's no question that Justin Trudeau and the money on Bay Street are not as foreign as Tom Mulcair to money on Bay Street or Greens to money on Bay Street. And there could well be that that's the intention. That doesn't mean we still get an election in this country, and if we can wake people up, and I know it's a big if, we can actually have, and this time around with 2 seats for the Green Party in the House of Commons, and me having a seat, at least Chantal Hébert and others tell me, yes, you'll be in the leaders' debate this time. So if I'm in the leaders' debate, I just don't think we're going to see it being handed over to Liberals. I think it'll be a minority parliament. So the good victor, so maybe I'm deluding myself, but I like to think that at the end of the next election, we will succeed in having at least 12 Green seats, which is full parliamentary caucus status, which gets us on the committees, asking questions, everyday question period, and all that stuff. And if we're 12 and there's a minority parliament, we could easily have the balance of power. And with Justin Trudeau campaigning for the Keystone Pipeline, I'm very worried about who's giving him advice. That isn't a good position to take. He's against Enbridge, but for Keystone, for selling Nexen to the Chinese. But I think on all kinds of other levels, Justin Trudeau's a very decent person, and I get along well with him personally. But the moneyed people around him are clearly of the Bay Street variety. It doesn't mean we're going to give him a majority. I hope Canada doesn't give any of the current leaders a majority.
Probably not, but the NDP is not going to gain popularity through this last year's performance, even though he's done a great job. He's lost popularity.
He's done well in a very disciplined, surgical set of questions. They haven't, I mean, if they come out, not, I mean, I'm getting very partisan and I apologize. But when I saw that the NDP caucus came out of their caucus and that their fight against poverty is ATM fees, I'm thinking, oh, come on. ATM fees and credit card interest rates is not what you want to do if you want to talk about income equality in Canada. Income inequality in Canada, you got to be much more fundamental things like, shouldn't we be taxing, inheritance taxes if an estate is over $5 million? That would leave most Canadians without getting an inheritance fee. But I think it's fair to say most. But, that's the kind of thing, the NDP's escape right now. Mulcair's moved the NDP to the right, to the traditional territory of sort of mainstream liberalism. And the Conservatives are so far to the right. And the Liberals have also shifted a bit to the right, which is worrying. And I think if we have a proper, if a parliament ends up reflecting what Canadians would want, it would be a minority parliament where we have to work together. And I would love that. I would love that. I think it'd be really, really healthy, particularly if Michael Chong's bill passes first and none of the leaders any longer have the ability to threaten their own caucus so grimly.